point I wanted to bring up that is interesting, again, for your students and viewers, that is to show how deep this Franco-German idea got into the Arab mind. Today, even today, foreigners are called throughout the Arab world Frangies. That is Franks, Frankies, Frenchies. Because of this whole thing that the Franks, the Charlemagne and thereafter, and then the Norman Knights, who were part of the Crusades, the Norman Knights, first take England in 1066, then Toledo, 1085, Jerusalem, the First Crusade, 1099. All of that were Norman endeavors. You have a tremendous Norman expansion. They have all these as Frenchies, as Francos, as Franks, Frangies. And today, the word for foreigner in the Arab world is Frangi. An American who goes to the Arab world, you're just a Frangi.
So do we find this in their literature as well?
Frangies?
I mean, the whole literature of the enemy.
Oh yeah, oh sure. They have literature from the Crusades on the other side, which portrays the Crusaders as brutes, as uncivilized, ill-mannered, vulgar and brutal animals. And yes, the antagonism is there, and the contempt, the cultural contempt. Because at that time, I think the Eastern culture and the Arab culture, both in the Middle East and in Spain, was on a higher, at least more delicate level. What happened, because I think the Germanic, French, knight, bastion, noble, baron sort of culture was quite rough and crude. And that's been portrayed in movies and literature. But they saw themselves on a much higher level. And I think what happened is that this freeze did occur around 1200 in the Arab Muslim world. Of course, the Muslims would not want to admit that. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings on that regard, but there was a certain decision to stop moving forward culturally and to follow other ways, mystic ways, which is fun or interesting for individual spiritual fulfillment, but doesn't do much for scientific achievement. And I really do think, had the Muslims decided to go the way of Averroes, then we really might have had, minarets in the Oxford spires.
Let me ask you another historical question. You brought up a very interesting point with the intolerance of the Visigoths.
Very intolerant.
Just where did they come from, and where does this particular intolerance stem from within this group?
I don't know. I mean, I don't blame them personally. They were newly created by probably very zealous, clerical, monkish type people. And so I don't want to blame these poor tribesmen for this intolerance. The only explanation I was able to give, like that all new converts, they tend to lack the sort of traditional, sort of more easygoing attitude towards the religion and culture that they're adopting. And they seem to be extremely zealous. And maybe when you have a teacher and you're a new convert, you're more prepared to do what that zealous teacher wants you to do than if you have your own cultural flexibility. Like if you come from Mexico, let's say, you're used to many different cultures. There's a certain cultural flexibility there. You're not going to be taken in by some new zealous movement to be totally intolerant. It's going to take much more than that. But a new tribe, like these Visigoths, who became the nobles. You see, in Europe you have basically a Germanic nobility. You always have for a long period of time, not just from the Charlemagne period, but also in Spain. I mean, you've always had this kind of blonde-haired Germanic upper class in Spain. Coming back to the Visigoths, of course, the present king is exactly the same way. It's surprising. I don't want to get spin racialist theories about that, but the mass of Spanish people, the farming people, are often of different cultural background. This upper class has always been Teutonic.
Well, it's also
in a strange way.
I mean, a lot of the literary figures, I mean, Cervantes himself, when they trace Spanish identity, they trace it to these Visigoths.
Yes, they
do. It's very interesting.
See, I'm not that Spanish
in Cervantes' first work, which is a play, where he talks about
there you are.
And the Spaniard is this Visigoth type.
Well,
and it's interesting the way later on Spanish identity is created and constructed, which leads me in a sense to the next question. We talked a lot about the literary tradition of the carrying over of the Crusades into literature. And one of the lectures that we've had spoke a lot about the fashioning of the conquistador on the European crusader type of figure who goes off to the new world and conquers and takes over in the same way, much as we find in the Reconquista and the trying to take over of Jerusalem and
well, you have in Spain this very long Reconquista, as you know, and the El Cid episodes and legends and so on are part of that. So I think you have this pattern for the crusading knight in Spain, because a lot of people don't realize that the Reconquista was driven by the crusader ethic, and that many of these foreign knights were in fact part of it, and that ended up in 1492 in the way we know, and then was exported in a new, more contemporary way in the way you're describing.
Patrick Sales, whose book Conquest of Paradise we're reading for this course.
Well, you were talking about Cornell. He was at college with me at Cornell. We were in the same class.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You were
the same class of 1958, right? So we were all there. You were mentioning you were going to be reading about Thomas Pynchon, I thought, in your introduction, but you didn't get to it. We were all there together, so we all knew each other. And it's interesting to know that he's been so successful.
What a group of contemporaries you made there, Thomas Pynchon.
Well, they were all. It was a big rabble-rousing period.